I appreciate the invitation to be here to discuss this topic. We are going to be talking about suicide prevention. We will focus a little bit on the construction industry, and I do know that there are other industries present in the audience. The information is still very valuable and timely for it. To get going, a little bit about myself. I am the Deputy Director for the Directorate of Construction in OSHA's national office. I've been with OSHA for 22 years. I started in the New England region, and I have been in the national office for the past 3 years. I really enjoy being in the national office. It helps me get a national voice to this particular topic, as well of suicide prevention and awareness. Just a quick disclaimer that is up on the screen, that some of the material inside, I do have some screenshots of websites. Some of that might be subject to copyright and or trademark. But the last item, as far as copying and distribution of this material, anything in this presentation can be shared. We don't have any issues with that. This is just a standard disclaimer. Now, I know that the presentation is going to be talking about suicide prevention and awareness, but I do want to just start with reviewing this agenda. I have 4 news or trade releases I would like to discuss before we get into the subject matter. And we're going to be talking about some non-traditional conditions in addition, such as workplace stress, opioids, the recovery process, and other mental health conditions that really go around or are affiliated with suicide in general and suicide in the workplace. I'm going to talk about the OSHA mission and why is OSHA even involved with it. There are no rules or regulations around this particular topic. So why are we involved? Then I'll be talking about some of our efforts of what we have been doing with within the agency. And then we're going to end on some outreach projects that participants can participate in. One of the current trade releases, and this is very timely, is the Advisory Committee on Construction Safety and Health will meet next week, next Wednesday and Thursday, August 9th and 10th in the OSHA's office. And we hold 1 or 2 of these meetings a year. And this is a private sector council that advises the Secretary of Labor on the direction that the construction industry and OSHA should be going. They highlight particular topics that we should be directing our efforts in. And then on April 24th this year, OSHA enacted the Fall National Emphasis Program, which after a 90-day outreach period, it became effective on August 1st. And now inspections will begin under this national emphasis program. Falls remain the leading cause of fatalities and serious injuries in all industries. In between 2014 and 2021, falls to the lower level accounted for 13% of all fatalities in all industries. And nearly 31% of all the OSHA inspections conducted during that time period had a fall emphasis. So this emphasis is going to apply to all construction activities and for certain general industry and non-construction inspections, such as rooftop mechanical work and or maintenance, utility work, arborist, tree trimming, even holiday light installations. And also road sign maintenance and billboards are all affected by this fall national emphasis program. And on July 17th this year, we announced a rule expanding submission requirements for injury illness data. And this rule takes effect on January 1st, 2024 for certain employers in high hazard industries. One highlight is that establishments with 100 or more employees in certain high hazard industries must electronically submit information from their Form 300 log of the work-related injuries and illnesses in the Form 301 injury illness incident reports. These submissions are in addition to the submission to the 300A log that has been required. And to help get the word out, because a lot of people don't see the press releases that OSHA does, but OSHA, or the Department of Labor, does have a YouTube channel. And this is just a screenshot of Assistant Secretary Doug Parker introducing this new requirement on injury and illness data. Couple fold. Number one, wanted to introduce the YouTube channel, and number two, has additional information on submitting that type of data. Then the last press release, a news release I want to talk about is on July 19th, we announced a proposed rule to clarify personal protection equipment standards. This is going to ensure the safety of the construction industry. And what this action does, it will align the construction industry with general industry in the maritime standards. The current standards don't clearly state that personal protective equipment must fit each affected employee properly. But the general industry and the maritime standards do say that. So this is going to align them. And the failure of standardized sized PPE to protect the physically smaller construction workers properly, as well as problems with accessing this properly fitting PPE, it's been a long-standing safety and health concern for construction workers, especially some of the women in the industry. So again, the proposed rule clarifies that PPE must fit properly and will align with the general industry and maritime standards. Now, before we begin and start talking about suicide prevention and awareness, I want to say that several sensitive subjects will be covered under the topic of suicide prevention and awareness. This is including traumatic and/or other types of stress situations and/or events, addiction, substance misuse, recovery, and general mental health conditions. And these topics may elicit different types of emotions or feelings. So please use your discretion to pause the session if you feel the need to. So, all right. What are some of the words that come to mind when you hear words like dialysis, chemotherapy, physical therapy, radiation, or blood transfusions? What are the words that come to your mind? And what lengths are you willing to go to assist or accommodate your coworkers when or if they need time off to go to treatment for these issues? Will you cover them to allow them to go to appointments? Would you be willing to donate leave to them? Now, how about when I say the words stress, depression, anxiety disorder, panic attacks, suicidal? Are you willing to cover for your coworkers if they're late for work or making more mistakes than normal? How are these words that came to your mind the same, and how are they different? Want to talk about and relate this to stigma. And just by definition, what's up on the screen now is stigma is a set of negative and often unfair beliefs that a society or group of people have about something. Think about what words came to your mind and what words had stigma attached to them. I would like to discuss this more during the Q&A portion, and I'm curious if your perspective changes at the end of the session. I'm also curious if the words that came to your mind were based on stigma, or anyone in the audience, do you have first or second-hand experience with any of these conditions? If you're a person that has experiences with depression, panic attacks, anxiety, or is in recovery, or has made a suicide attempt, or even knows someone that's made a suicide attempt, I'm confident that you will have a different point of view or perspective than the fortunate few that have not been affected by any of those words that we were mentioning. Now, I do want to talk about some of the groundwork. The language we use affects the way we think about various topics. To address the stigma issue surrounding suicide, I'd like to frame some of the words I'll be using during this presentation. And I request that in future conversations, if you're not already doing it, please use this language instead of the language I'm going to talk about avoiding. Quite often, we see it in the press, we hear it in interviews, and yes, I'm guilty also. We use the term committed suicide. It's something that we've heard for a long, long time. The term committed has a negative or has a stigma attached to it. Instead of the word committed suicide, I will be using died by suicide, ended his or her life, and or killed himself or herself. And other words that I'm going to be avoiding are a failed suicide attempt. Because if someone attempts suicide but does not die, that is not a failure. And on the other hand, a successful suicide attempt, if someone takes their own life, that is not a success. So we want to use the words, and I will be using the words suicide attempt and or death by suicide. Now, I'd also like to frame the scope of the issue of suicide. And all of the statistics on the next couple slides pertain to the United States and are available from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and that's AFSP.org. They have a fantastic site with all of the current information. I also want to make note here that the numbers shown are from the Center for Disease Control and represent the entire US population. These are not workplace suicides. there are two different numbers I'll be referring to. So please understand the difference between the Center for Disease Control, which is the entire US population, and I'll be referring to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, which will be workplace incidents. But in general, just under 46,000 Americans died by suicide, which made it the 12th leading cause of death in the United States. That was in 2021. And for the safety professionals in the audience, we love rates because that's what it's compared to. This is a 13.48 rate per 100,000 individuals. Now, why does this affect the workplace? Let's narrow this group down a little bit. People the age between 16 and 64, which is the typical worker age in the United States, over 35,000 Americans died by suicide in that age group. For this particular age group, the suicide rate was 17.16, and that is a big step up. So it is affecting the workplace because a large percentage are of working age men and women. Now, the Department of Labor is committed to using its capacity in rulemaking, such as HHS, Health and Human Services. This agency is looking at mental health and substance abuse regulations. The EBSA, the Employee Benefits Security Administration. This is the agency that enforces the mental health parity law. The ETA, the Employment Training Administration, and SAMHSA, they provide grants and funding to state and local health agencies. And with OSHA, we plan on using our bully pulpit and our outreach network, just like sessions like today, to play a role to advance a bold new reimagining of how the nation's handling mental health, not only in the general public, but in the workplace. Now, this doesn't mean that every single agency is going to be involved with every strategy that we're using. But again, OSHA is looking at the bully pulpit, and we have an audience and we have an outreach network that we are looking to help get this message out to workplaces. Now, OSHA might not be the first federal agency you think of when you hear about workplace conditions such as stress, substance misuse, suicide, and other mental health conditions. But the agency's mission is to prevent work-related injuries, illnesses, and deaths. And mental health is part of health. We accomplish this mission with a three-pronged balanced approach, and with strong, fair, and effective enforcement, by setting clear standards, and by providing compliance assistance to help employers understand their responsibilities. When we use all three of these tools together, we're hoping to meet our mission and reach our goals and objectives. And when we don't have enforcement jurisdiction or standards, we do rely on our outreach network and compliance assistance efforts. So, and right now, we do not have standards for OSHA does not have standards for suicide in the workplace. We are not looking at any at this time, but as I said earlier on the previous slides, other agencies might be. Now, why focus on these non-traditional hazards? Well, every safety professional hears the numbers. There were 14,000 workers killed every year in 1970 when OSHA was first enacted. You know, the workplace in 1970 has a lot of the same hazards that we have today. We still have the struck by, the caught in between, the machine guarding, the electrical, the falls, and the list goes on. Yeah, some of the chemicals might be different. The workforce might be a little bit different, but a lot of them are the same. And we often hear the goal of 0 accidents and everyone goes home safe at night. Well, we're in more of a 24/7 type challenge now, where not only people need to go home safe at night, they need to return healthy the next morning for the next shift or for the next shift. In today's workforce, the attitude of leave your problems at the door for the next 8 hours and just pay attention to the work I'm paying you to do, it's no longer acceptable, because everyone has experienced during this pandemic that what we do and the issues we have in our personal lives do carry over into the workplace. And it goes the other way around too. What we're doing at work affects our home and family time as well. We see this in the numbers and types of accidents and fatalities we're investigating at OSHA in today's workplace. BLS for 2021 shows that 5,190 fatal occupational injuries occurred. And that's an 8.9% increase from the previous year. Now, unintentional overdose deaths in the workplace, again, Bureau of Labor and Statistic numbers, have increased for the 9th consecutive year. In 2021, it reached a peak of 464 workers lost their lives at work excuse me, to workplace to overdoses. And workplace suicides claimed 236 workers. Excuse me. And that equated to 4.5% of all the worker fatalities. And whether the suicide or death occurs at a facility or outside the workplace, the death of a worker or a friend or family member of a worker has an enormous impact on an organization's operations, not to mention the impacts that it has on the community in general. I want to go back to just the next couple slides on when this first became an issue for me. I was reviewing some public health data. As I opened in my introduction, I started in Massachusetts. And in 2015, I was looking for data to support my fall stand down presentations. And I opened up a report of fatal injuries at work by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. And I was fully expecting falls to be the #1 cause of occupational fatalities. And then I saw suicide, and I was shocked. I was angry with myself, because as a safety professional who paid attention to occupational fatalities, I did not know this. So I started asking my peers and people in the industry. Other people didn't know about it. And it really surprised me. And this is when I decided that I need to start talking about this, and the agency needs to start focusing on this. But without other data and without other support, it was very hard to get momentum. So, and then in 2016, the CDC published a rate of suicide, and they were tracking that the construction industry had some of the highest rates. And in 2016, only 17 states were tracking this. And then in December of 2016, BLS published that suicide is now a tragic phenomenon that has grown in the United States in the workplace. And this is the report that I needed to support my work to go forward. Now, fast forward to 2020, these are the latest statistics. Now, again, these are CDC overall general public rates. Construction and extraction has a male suicide rate of 49.4 and a female suicide rate of 25.5. And you can see the other rates as well. These are extremely high rates. Now, how these rates were gathered was from death certificates and coroner reports, and a NAICS code was requested for the last occupation that individual worked in. So that's how they're getting these numbers. Now, these are some current numbers that are ongoing, and you can see I've been tracking it since 2013. There have been 236 suicides in 2021, and again, 464 in of the drug overdoses. The 5-year period from 2017 through 2021, there have been 1,692 unintentional overdoses in the workplace due to non-medical use of drugs or alcohol. And again, this is the 9th consecutive year this has gone up. And during that time, during that same time period, there have been 1,381 deaths by suicide in the workplace. The non-traditional conditions such as traumatic stress, substance use disorder, suicide, and other mental health conditions, it's a complicated issue for the agency because we have overlapping work and non-work factors. But again, these non-traditional conditions that we're calling them are both a serious public and occupational health problem that can have long-lasting effects. And unintentional overdose deaths in the workplace were just under 9% of all reported occupational fatalities. Combined with the suicide deaths, total more than 13% of all the occupational fatalities. And we do not have standards or regulations for these, 13.5%. Now, OSHA recognizes the value of our outreach network provides in how it adds to worker safety by amplifying our voice, specifically within the construction community. So thank you for that. When you're making the decision whether to share outreach material and/or safety and health information, please remember that mental health is also part of safety, health and safety. Again, when we share health and safety resources, please be aware that you can share these. So we've created OSHA's created a new web page. Well, when we say new web page, it's about 18 months old now. And on the suicide, preventing suicides web page has free and confidential resources to help employers and workers identify the warning signs and know who and how to call for help. The last thing anyone wants to have to do is ask themselves after the fact, was there something I could have done? So if you get a moment, please take a look at the resources on the web page and let us know if there are specific ways to best get this message out to your industry, or if there are any other specific industry links that you would like us to put onto this web page. Now, the web page was a huge step forward for the suicide prevention work group. It was the first digital fingerprint that the agency really acknowledged that death by suicide in the workplace is an issue. And this was a huge step for us, and we're really proud of this website. But we didn't stop there. We wanted something additional. The work group created a poster, which is now available on the OSHA.gov publication page. And it's the 5 things you should know about suicide prevention in the workplace. Number 1, be aware. Everyone can help prevent suicide. Pay attention. Know the warning signs of suicide. Number 3, reach out and ask, are you okay? Take action. If someone is in crisis, stay with them until they get help. And number 5, just learn more. Learn more about what suicide prevention resources are available. So, in a huge issue, a huge item that came to light that OSHA did not have much to do with was the introduction of the new 988 3-digit emergency number for mental health. Specifically, if you dial 988, you will get a suicide prevention counselor, which that line is now expanding to other mental health issues as well. Now, I am not a social worker. I am not a psychiatrist or trained in suicide prevention. I consider myself a gatekeeper. I have taken the time to learn about this particular issue, and I also do keep resources on hand. So the message I want to get out there is you don't have to be a professionally trained clinician in this topic to make a difference. Just by talking about it and understanding the issues is a great first step. Again, going back to the YouTube with the Department of Labor, we have a very short video posted on YouTube, the 5 things you need to know about suicide prevention. We are trying to use multiple medias to get the word out. We don't want to just stick with press releases and/or digital press releases. So we do have suicide prevention videos as well. Now, the slide that's up now, the workplacesuicideprevention.com, is it's a report of findings to direct development in national guidelines for workplace suicide prevention. This is a group effort between the American Association of Suicidology and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and United Suicide Survivors International. And this will be an ongoing and will be updated in the near future as we learn more about how workplaces are dealing with it. Now, I'm extremely proud to have been a catalyst for the development of the construction version of Talk Saves Lives course that the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention offers. I cannot take credit for creating it, but I can take credit for creating a demand for it. We are real excited to have partnered with AFSP. They will offer a 60-minute course free of charge on Talk Saves Lives that focuses on the workplace. And this is a great introduction to suicide prevention, and I recommend it as a first step. If you are looking to find a local chapter, I mentioned earlier, AFSP.org. You can go right onto their website. They have chapters in every state, in most territories as well. Their website offers a lot of material and guidance and suggestions. They also offer for students, for teachers, as well as workplaces. So, and again, going back to the work we do in work and how it affects our personal lives, we all have friends, family members that can be affected by this. So it doesn't have to always be occupational. It can also be personal as well. Now, Health and Human Services announced $200 million funding for the 988 number. And this was in May of 2023. So it's a fairly new number, and it is a new law and has really been well funded. It is a requirement that every state have a 988 portion now. Couple items on this. Unlike the 911 number, there is no geo tracking on the 988 number. When you call 988, it does go to local operators, but that operator cannot geolocate you. So if you do call and you want to remain anonymous on that, you can. And at this point, to my knowledge, they will not send somebody out unless you ask. So you can ask to have somebody come out if you are in crisis, or if you have somebody that you're with that is in crisis. In addition to that 200 million, the HHS just awarded additional grants to build out crisis strike task force, and they are focusing on high rate areas, and they're offering to these are local jurisdictions and usually health departments that will send counselors out within specific jurisdictions. This is not nationwide. This is smaller communities that they're testing and piloting. Some other resources. CPWR has a whole very comprehensive page, not only covering suicide prevention, but also mental health and addiction. CPWR, along with AFSP, are one of OSHA's partners in this. And CPWR is the Center for Construction Research and Training. It's a nonprofit dedicated to reducing occupational injuries and illnesses specifically for the construction industry. And we work with them and we use their research quite a bit. The suicide prevention page on the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, and you can see that they have some statistics as well. They're showing 48,000 people dying by suicide. And one that they're saying that the 12.3 were actually people considering suicide or had suicidal thoughts. So the number of 1.2 million suicide attempts each year is the one that is often given. We do work with the CDC as well through NORA, the National Occupational Research Agenda, and we work with their groups on several topics at OSHA. The Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. This is probably one of the longer standing alliances specifically dedicated to suicide in the construction industry. And we are also, OSHA is also partnering with them. Now, this circle includes Associated General Contractors, Associated Builders and Contractors, the CDC, NIOSH, CPWR. It's a big circle within the suicide prevention and awareness group. I guess I spoke a few seconds early on the AGC. So yes, AGC, both nationally and at the local chapters, are really involved with our suicide prevention efforts. The Construction Working Minds is an organization that has recently hosted the first two national conferences specifically addressing suicide in the construction industry. The last meeting was held in Kansas City, and I am honored to be asked to be on their planning committee this year. And we'll also be doing a podcast with Dr. Sally Spence Thomas coming up soon, specifically for construction-related suicide prevention. So this is an excellent group we've been working with as well. With the National Safety Council, again, we get this one is particularly mental health, but we cannot talk about suicide without talking about mental health issues. So the National Safety Council does have a blog out there, what employers can do when it comes to mental health. And part of the catalyst for this is that a recent study showed that more than 80% of the US workers have reported experiencing workplace stress. Now, the interesting aspect of that number is that more than 50% of those believe that their stress was related to work, that their stress related at work impacted their home lives. So again, making the connection, what we do at home affects the work and vice versa. We have some outreach events remaining for 2023. Next week, we're beginning the Safe and Sound Week, and we are focusing on mental health. This is not just mental health in construction, this is mental health in general and how it affects the workplace. And we're excited about this. Again, the Department of Labor is using a lot of different directorates and agencies to push this message forward. And if you have not signed up to participate for Safe and Sound Week, I highly recommend that you do go and register. There are a lot of great organizations that are participating in this as well. And Construction Suicide Prevention Week is coming up September 4th through the 8th this year. I'm going to ask Karina Lorick if she can talk for a couple minutes about the Construction Suicide Prevention Week, because we've done this for several years now, and I'm going to let her expand on this.
So the Construction Suicide Prevention Week started a couple of years ago, as Tim mentioned. The first year we started with 15 states and roughly about 15 to 18,000 participants. In 2021, it expanded to 43 states and a little over 63,000 participants. And last year we had almost all 50 states participating and over 250,000 participants nationwide, which was fantastic. I'm the area director in Kansas City, but this group kind of started, after a discussion with industry and OSHA, and all focusing on preventing suicide. On OSHA.gov/suicide prevention, there is a link to www.construction suicide prevention, where you can register yourself, your company, to host a stand down event. There is information on how to host a stand down event. You get a participation certificate, social media badges. It's a way to share that information. And what we do know is discussions like this and discussions at your workplace, whether it's your customers or just even with your employees, do save lives. And I know Tim and myself and other people within OSHA and this industry have heard those firsthand experiences, and just talking about it does end up saving lives. So thank you. I hope to look forward to see you guys register.
Thank you, Karina. Here is the poster for the Safe and Sound Week. And you can go to the Safe and Sound Week link on the OSHA website and sign up and take the pledge. And this was the web page that Karina was just discussing on Construction Suicide Prevention Home. And to stay up to date with what OSHA is doing and what the Department of Labor is doing, we do have a bi-weekly newsletter. We do have tips of the day. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, as I've mentioned.